Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Grounding. My name is Brian Boyd. Today's topic is the solitude of leadership. If you've been tuning in to Grounding for a while, I would love to welcome you back. And if this happens to be your first time, I would love to welcome you to the Grounded community. And hopefully this episode will inspire you. Check out some of my other content because in this past year and a half, y'all, I've covered everything from leadership to business to personal relationships and everything in between. And there's so much content that you can get things from and help improve your life in the process as well. But with that being said, all shameless advertisement out the way, let's talk about the solitude of leadership. And this is a topic that is pretty unexpected, even in this impromptu series, because I wanted to wrap it up with the episode last week titled The Faith in Leadership. But God also wanted me to talk about this week the solitude of that, because the reality when it comes on this path and this journey in life is that there are going to be times where you're going to have to walk alone. You're going to be times where you're not going to be able to take other people with you. There are times where you're going to have to leave people and situations and things behind entirely. And you have to be confident and comfortable enough to do those things. All right. And the reality of that just came from personal living, personal experience, but even with reading the Bible, because there have been so many times in the history of Israel where God's people were led astray by listening and giving in to the thoughts, the actions, and the demands of other people. And that is something that is happening even today with us in our lives, because while we may all have our own dreams and desires of things to do, there are so many times where we're pulled to the left and to the right and even behind by people that were in our lives or people that were in our past. And we never get to the point where we're living the lives that we want. We're not pursuing the future that we want because there's always so much pressure from all directions. But I'm here to tell you today that if you want to travel down this journey, if you want to take the narrow path of leadership and you want to become the person that God has called you to be, you're not going to be swayed by these people. You can't give in to their demands. You can't give in to their thoughts and ideas. And you have to be steadfast and unmovable in the stuff that you're supposed to do. And the best way to explain this is the book of Galatians, chapter 1, verse 10. And just for a quick backstory, as always, this is Paul talking to the Galatian people about the different doctrines and things that are coming at that time. Because at a previous time, they had heard the gospel of Christ, they had received Christ as their Savior, and they were also walking on that journey and living and doing the things that God had commanded them to do. But the reality of that is that at some point in time, there were other people that came in with their own thoughts, they came in with their own laws, they came in with their own doctrines and religions, and they were starting to lead these people astray. And Paul is now telling them the reality is that these people are now being led astray by these different ideas. They're not following the true God and the true gospel. And in order for them to do so fully with their whole hearts, their minds, and their thoughts, they have to not give in to the thoughts and the opinions of other people. They have to follow the truth no matter what other people say to them. And even with this, Galatians chapter 1 and 10, in the word of Paul reads that, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. And with this, y'all, it's truly so much in here. And quite frankly, if I could just take this mic off of my desk and just drop it, I would. Because Paul is simply saying here once again that even with him being in the form of leadership, or anyone in the form of leadership in that sense, is that they should serve to always please God and not the people around them. They should always confirm to do the things that are right instead of doing the things that will fulfill the needs and the egos of other people. And the reality of that is that if you want to be a leader, you're going to have to go down this journey by yourself. All right. And it also goes to even the first point of this thing is that you should never seek the approval of other people, because the reality for that, this comes from the simple fact is that when you try to give in to the thoughts of others and to the demands and the influence of other people, it's often going to take you past the place you were supposed to go. It's often going to take you off of the way that you're not supposed to be on. And even with that, And even in my personal life, I have done that so many times in life because there were so many places, like even before starting this podcast, that I was supposed to leave behind, whether that was organizations or jobs or even people that I wanted to keep in my life. And I tried to hold on to some of that stuff as much as possible. But it had got to a point to where it became overwhelming and I had just left all of that stuff all at one time. And I'm telling you that when I really did that, when I finally made up my mind to leave all of that stuff and I left it like I did, God began to open so many doors for me, man. He began to open up so many opportunities and he began teaching me so much about his word and recording and, talking to other people and building relationships with them that has allowed me, has sustained me even today, man, because a lot of that stuff that I had served simply as the foundation of something that was to come. And there are going to be times where you're going to have to do that in order for you to get rid and go down the path that you're supposed to go down. You have to get rid of all of the noise in your life. You're going to have to remove yourself from different spaces. You're going to have to move yourself from different situations. You're going to have to move yourself from people that are not going to serve the place that you're going to. And this is basically what he's saying. And just a quick caveat here, of course, as well, is that if you're going down the path of leadership, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't take into thought, the concerns of other people. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't take their feelings into consideration. But what it means is that if you know there's something you're supposed to do, there's something that you're supposed to tell them, that there's a path that you're supposed to go in, you shouldn't let those people sway you from going off of the path. And that even goes back to that proverb I covered through the wisdom series, is that faithful are the wounds of a friend, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Because the reality of that is that if I care about you and I want the best for you, I'm gonna say and do the things that are necessary for me to do, even if it may hurt you up front, because I know that that's something that's gonna help you in the future. It's wrong for me on the opposite end to enable you to do these things or to prevent you from doing the things that you know that you're supposed to do, all right? And that's something that you're going to have to understand, all right? And that simply comes from, once again, understanding that you cannot always meet the approval of other people on this journey. And I guess to sum up this point, that really is the point. You can't always seek the approval of other people, because there are going to be times where you have to be by yourself and you can't give in to the thoughts, the needs, and the whatevers of people. But as I said before, you should always try to consider them things. You should always try to consider their ways. But once again, if they don't serve you, get those things out of the way. Do what you know you're supposed to do. But moving along though, y'all, the second point that I want to bring up here is that as a person and as a leader, you cannot please man and please God at the same time. And this is pretty much what I was alluding to in that last point, because if the approval and the thoughts and the concerns of other people overrides your ability to be truthful and honest with them, or to stay even now your own personal journey, then you're not going to fulfill the things that you're supposed to do. You're not going to be able to do the things that God wants you to do, because you're so concerned and wrapped up with pleasing other people. And like I said, as a leader, you cannot be in this situation at all, because you're always going to be at odds. You're always going to be at war. You're not going to be able to accomplish the stuff that you're supposed to do. And that's exactly what Paul is telling them right now, because if they cannot live the life for God that they want to live, giving in to the false ideas and religions of other people, they can't do the things that they know they're supposed to do, because they're giving in to things that people want them to do. And that even comes from the simple perspective of you can't please man and God at the same time. And even when you look at this from a spiritual perspective, again, there have been people that God have sent to them throughout the years, prophets and things of that nature, that have given them messages directly from God that his people did not want to hear. They did not want to understand. And that even goes back to that proverb, once again, that faithful are the wounds of a friend, but an enemy multiplies kisses, because God will send these people with the sole purpose of delivering their message that they could be saved from, that they wouldn't have to endure many of the struggles and the punishments and stuff that were to come, because God himself is a just God. He's not a God that wants the worst for the people that serve him. He's somebody who wants the best, and he would always send warning before destruction. He would tell the people what was to come and what they needed to do to prevent that situation from happening. But the reality of that too is that even back in those times, there were people that were telling them that nothing was going to come, that there was no destruction coming and that God was pleased with them doing the stuff that they were doing. And because of that, they ended up losing Jerusalem. They ended up losing Israel. All of their land and stuff was destroyed, and they were led into slavery. And even bringing that back into the world today, there are so many times, and there have been so many leaders that have been destroyed through history because they have given in to the thoughts and the desires of other people, and those thoughts and desires had led them astray from the path that they know that they were supposed to take. And you have to understand once again that on this path of leadership, that you can't do two things at the same time, because if you ultimately want to go where you're supposed to go, whether you want to start that business, whether you want to leave that job, whether this is something that you felt like God has placed on your heart to do, you cannot give in to the thoughts, the actions, and the ideas of other people once again. And you can't let those things override your ability to do the things that you know you're supposed to do. So if you get nothing else out of this message, because the whole theme of this is understanding that you're going to have to do things that people aren't going to agree with, but you have to be able to stand on that 100%. You cannot go back to where you're not supposed to be at. You cannot give in to things that you're not supposed to hear, you're not supposed to do. You have to stay on this journey, even if that means you going along. And as I mentioned before, while it does get hard and rough at times, while it will get tough and it feels like you're the loneliest person in this world and you have to do these things on your own, God is always up there watching. God is always up there sustaining you. He's always up there strengthening you. He's always up there encouraging you to move forward. And I'm telling you that even in my personal life, I have felt this very same thing, because as I mentioned before, about a year or so ago, prior to me starting this podcast, and even in the midst of it, God was telling me to leave things left and right. I had to leave behind all of my hobbies. I had to leave behind organizations I was a part of. I had to leave behind even some of the jobs and stuff that I was doing. And then last but not least, I had to leave people and groups and stuff that were close to me at that particular time. And I can't tell you the mental toll that it took on me. And even in the midst of me doing like the Lessons for Life series and all that stuff, I was getting on here every week, y'all, talking and giving the word and giving the messages and all. But on the inside, I was a mess. I was a wreck. But God was still able to strengthen me. He was still able to sustain me, and he still empowered me to get on here and do these episodes and things, even in the midst of that stuff. So even with that, I'm saying I was still able to stand, even regarding all of the stuff that was going on in my personal life. And after that phase got over, after I kept going with this, I started to get joy from doing this every week. I started to get joy from, coming on here and talking to people about God and the things that I love to talk about. I started getting joy from doing the things that God told me to do, and that overwhelmed all of those things. And I can't even tell you, even from the perspective of, there were certain even times and organizations and stuff that were trying to get me to come back. There were things that would come up every now and then, like, "Hey, Brian, I miss you, man, come back." So but it got to the point once again to where, even though I wanted to go back, a part of me wanted to be back in those situations, I knew that there was something that God told me to do directly, and that's something that God wanted me to go down. And if I would have went back and gave in to those thoughts, those opinions, or those actions of other people, I wouldn't have got where I am right now. And I'm telling you that, once again, if you want to go down the path of life, if you want to live your true desires out, and you want to do the things that God is leading you to do, you're going to be in the place where you have to only be concerned with pleasing him. You're going to have to take your eyes off, and you're going to have to look straight ahead, and you're going to have to be content with going down that journey alone. All right. Because when you do, and when you cross that path, when you cross that desert or the wilderness or whatever it is you want to call it, and you get to the other side, you're going to be in the promised land. All right. You're going to be in the place that God wants you to be. You're going to be in the place where you have more joy now than you did before you had to leave all those things behind. And you're going to be in a better place, quite frankly, because you took that decision for yourself. You did those things on your own, and you stayed directed no matter what people said, no matter what people did, no matter what they wanted you to do. And I'm telling you, there's no greater joy than doing just that. But with that being said, that pretty much concludes this episode. And as I mentioned once again, if you're a person in this time right now and you're going down that journey, and you may seem like you're the only person in this world, understand that God is with you. All right. Understand that he's going to strengthen you. Understand he's going to direct you. Understand he's going to lead you where you're supposed to go. And if you can't give in to the people, the voices, the organizations, and the actions of things around you. You can't give in to none of that stuff, all right? Because if you do, you're not going to get to where he wants you to go. You're not going to become the person he wants you to be. You're not going to be everything that you desire to become. And as I mentioned so many times before, I do not want you to be that person. I want you to have the best. I want you to be the best version of yourself. I want you to make the impact that you're supposed to make on this earth. And I'm telling you, you cannot do that giving in to other people and all of these other things. You have to go down the journey that God is leading you, and you have to be comfortable knowing that you're not going to always have people beside you to do those things. And like I said, all of this sounds rough, y'all. I ain't gonna lie to you. This has been one of them episodes, but this is one of those things I didn't even script out, all right? I just had to give it to you just like that because there's so much in this to cover. There's so much to do. But like I said, understand, just be encouraged that you may have to do these things alone sometime, but God will give you everything that you need. He will sustain you in that situation. I'm telling you from a personal place that everything will truly be all right. But you got to take the journey. You got to be comfortable, and you got to have faith that he will bring you through each and every time. But with that being said, that concludes this episode. I'm starting to ramble too much now, but if you like the episode, please be sure to like and share across all social media platforms. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or even topics for your boy, please be sure to reach out to me at brian@thegroundedpodcast.com or on social media if you're following the Grounded Podcast there. But with that being said, I love each and every one of you. I hope you got something out of this message, and I will see you all very, very soon. My name is Brian Boyd. Y'all have a good night. Peace. Hey everyone, Brian here once again. Thank you so much for tuning in to Grounded. If these messages have been a blessing to you, please consider donating at thegroundedpodcast.com/donate. Furthermore, if you're looking for books and journals and other resources that will help improve your life, business, and relationships, please be sure to check those out at thegroundedpodcast.com/store. As always, it's been a blessing. I truly love each and every one of you, and I truly hope to see you all once again very soon. All right? Peace.